Tom opened his travel bag and considered his options. Aside from a few sundries, he'd packed his academy suit, 2 pairs of pants, a couple of dress shirts, and a brown suede blazer. It wasn't exactly material for going out on the town, but that seemed to be the plan. Mavisti Richer had met him at the door, along with her co-wife, Tirola, and after an effusive welcome, they laid out plans for the evening. Dinner in the capital, followed by drinks tonight, business tomorrow, with the interview on the last day of Shell, then home. "I can do this," he sighed, casting a critical eye at his dress shirts. During the ride from the academy, his driver, Masseri, had been charming company, and while she'd been hesitant at first, she eventually opened up to his questions about the Richer family. It wasn't gossip, but it passed the time. Mavisti Richer was the matriarch of House Richer, and with the passing of her mother a few years before, she had become the undisputed head of Noble's house media. She had 2 co-wives, Tirola and Pravash, and they were collectively married to a fellow named Ulrich. Over the years, they had 5 children, of which Nesta was the youngest and the last still living at home. All very straightforward. Masseri wasn't a gossip, but during the ride in, he managed to eke some useful information out of her. He knew before arriving that he'd be meeting with Mavisti and Tirola, who worked in the company as an executive broadcast director. That told him almost nothing, though when they met she assured him that his interview was in good hands. Pravash seemed to be involved in the company as the head of public and investor relations, and was currently off-planet on business. When it came to Ulrich, the news got a bit more interesting. While Masseri considered him a devoted father, he had decamped to one of the family vacation homes after Nesta left home for the academy. While everything was certain to be fine, he and the ladies Richer were going through troubled waters just now, leaving his non-appearance over Shell as a virtual certainty. As far as the children, Nesta had always been considered a bright, easy girl to be around, though never as outgoing as her 4 older sisters. Sarashi, Levila, and Tirandi worked in the family business. The 4th girl, Salini, was just a few years older than Nesta and was off serving with the Marines, though the plan was for her to take her place in the company when she finished her tour. As the youngest daughter, Nesta was something of a favourite with the staff, who consisted of Masseri, Velisti the chef, and Pemara, who took care of the house. The family business kept everyone constantly on the move, both around Shill, as well as travelling to and from the other major worlds in the Imperium, and that had brought Masseri into the house as a driver a few years ago, when Nesta was about 6. Reading in between the lines, Tom was increasingly certain that the staff had raised Nesta. While she extolled the virtues of all the ladies and painted Mavisti Richer as a good provider and a strong matriarch, Masseri skirted his questions about her as a parent with surprising finesse. That was interesting in itself. Tom had never been acquainted with any Shilvanti before meeting Mavere those months ago. Seen, yes. Spoken to Marines or government service personnel, certainly. But not acquainted. From what he'd come to understand of the Imperium over the years, his impression was that the average Shilvanti on the street revered and loved their empress. As to the majority of nobles, words like respect tended to be prefaced with words like wary. As for Masseri, she loved her work for House Richer, enjoyed the travel, and was glad to be one of the live-in staff. She hoped to meet the right man and settle into a family group eventually, but just now most of her savings were going into a retirement fund. She was outgoing, blushed easily, got on well with Pamera the housekeeper, and promised that Velisti, the older Shilvanti man working as the family chef, could cook the best pastari soup anywhere. While he had yet to meet the rest of the staff, if they were as easy to be around as Messeri, then Nesper could have done worse. Looking at his clothes as he laid them out, he guessed she could have done better too. An evening of clubbing with the ladies Richer. Joy. It was a dark and stormy night. The evening was coming on, yet the sun dropped below the trees in a wash of twilight reds that stole through the dark grey clouds that straddled the indigo sky. It was the kind of night that flaunted itself over the turbulent sea, ripping open the bodice of twilight with the lingering fingers that tore it asunder, and... "Why do you read that stuff?" Brisala peered over Nessa's shoulder as they sat on the couch. "Melondi's getting the film and should be here in a moment." "I like Trevor Canva." Nessa pulled the omnipad away from Brisala and shut it down. Girls from the class were already filing into the rec room, along with stragglers from around the dorm. Ever since the sensation of the circus video, movie night on the first evening of Shell had taken on a life of its own. "I like Canva," piped up Jacksme, looking back from where she lay on the floor. "Canva has style." "Exactly." Nessa looked around the room. The twins had taken up residence on each side of Belder, who was glued to her omnipad, texting her boyfriend. Sitting on the floor in front of them, Jacksme set aside her omnipad, where she had been working on designs for the human-style swimsuits. Aside from Scifi, she wasn't showing anyone. The two of them were camped on the floor near Belder's feet, occasionally asking her things like what his favourite colour was. Over to one side, Kellogg sat with Deshin, working on the cube that occupied her free time, and together the pair were guarding a seat for Melondi, as other girls from the dorm filtered into the room. There was a jostling for open seats, and Nessa put away the omnipad. Truth be told, she really liked Canva's style, but right now her mind was turning over whatever Mother Mavisti might be up to. The thought of it turned her stomach, and any distraction right now was worth its weight in... "Bagoon puffs?" Brisala pressed the bowl into Nessa's lap after taking a few, and after picking at it a bit, Nessa took a handful before passing the bowl down to Scifi, who looked at him mournfully. "You know, I wish we could bring down some..." Jacksme elbowed the athlete quickly in the ribs, as 3 more girls came in for the show, and both twins leaned down to Brisala and hissed, "Shh! First rule!" "I know." Scifi looked abashed, but picked out a few more chips, and handed the bowl up to the twins. It had become a mantra. The first rule about the chocolate was that no one talked about the chocolate. Nesper didn't know Scifi well, but she was getting there. The girl's appetite was voracious. "I don't know where you put it all anyway," she offered with a hesitant smile, brushing her bangs back and glancing to the door as Melondi arrived and headed over to the AV player. "Hey, all food is good food if you work out enough," Scifi grinned, "even if some is better. You know, for working out, I mean." Melondi had settled down between Desi and Lark, and called over for one of the girls near the door to turn down the lights. "What's this one called?" "Spirit of the Theatre. It's a human opera," offered Melondi, as she forwarded to the opening. "An opera?" That was Pamali from down the hall. "Trust me, it's really good," offered one of the twins. "It is," nodded the second. That buoyed Nessa's hopes. The twins both enjoyed musicals, though they weren't something they'd watch by choice if something else was on. If all 3 of them had seen and liked it, then maybe it would take her mind off things for a while. Only the goddesses knew what her family was doing. The screen faded to black, as a human voice rang out over the girls, and she turned her attention back to the captions. "Sold." Dinner had been interesting. In truth, it had been a spectacular view, and Tom had been impressed. The skyline framed the sparkling expanse of the ocean, revealing the capital in ways that the drive from the spaceport couldn't have managed. The penthouse restaurant was meant to dazzle, and it delivered. As to the portions, Tom had seen pictures of fine dining on Earth where the portions, no matter how artfully presented, wouldn't exactly keep hunger at bay. It seemed that wasn't unique to Earth, and that he was supposed to be as impressed with the presentation as he was with the view, and in truth, it had been a nice, if small, meal. How Ashovanti wouldn't starve, he didn't know. If there hadn't been much time spent on eating, it left more than enough for conversation. Mavisti, Tirola, and Sarashi Rishay had also been interesting. The eldest of the Rishays had gone on for some length about her business, with the occasional supportive nod from Triola. Sarashi, however, was quiet as a mouse. Tom had nodded in all the right places, but he switched off and was mentally driving an autopilot for most of the conversation. Aside from the odd question, Mavisti was there to impress him, with Mavisti, talk about Mavisti, and even as she showed him off to the other diners throughout the evening, she was showing off Mavisti. So this was being a token human. No wonder her husband had found better places to be. She didn't impress, he wasn't listening, and, well, if tact wasn't their forte, the Rishays knew how to dress. The ladies were dressed for the club, in outfits of the rich brown and forest green of their house, that emphasized all of their assets. He'd made the mistake of complimenting them, and in response they'd fawned over his jacket and how well he coordinated. The effusive response to such an innocent remark had been overwhelming, and he would have felt ridiculous, but one thing was clear. Those ladies were thirsty. His earlier questions about Nessa's father were disregarded with breathtaking speed, and now their body language, well, Sarashi has spent the meal looking at him in a calculated mixture of speculation and anticipation. Tirola had spent much of her time leaning toward him in a low-cut top while bombastically extolling the size of her portfolio. The rest of the time she hinted at a book deal they'd just love him to sign. She even had the papers for later, just in case. Throughout the meal, it felt like Mavisti Rishay would have cheerfully waved to her friends, struck a heroic pose, planted a flag on his ass, and declared victory. It was a long meal. Maseri had eaten her dinner while she waited with the car, before driving them to the club. He'd never been one to go out to clubs, but as they settled into the alcove, he had to admit, the crowd seemed to be the upper class. Club music was thumping with some atonal beat, but at least it wasn't so loud you couldn't talk to the people next to you. All that just made it a nice place for the great and the good to... They wanted him to get drunk. Shit. The thought was fleeting, but it made him lose a step as the other slid into the alcove. Plastering a smile on his face, and despite their protests, he slid in on the outside, opposite Mavisti, with Sarashi to his right and Tirola in between. "So, I bet you've never seen anything like this," Tirola preened, leaning forward. The show of cleavage would have been impressive if the situation hadn't been horrifying, and he spared a split second to apologize across time and the light years to that girl in Michigan. She was no longer the worst date of his life. "I am so going to hell for this," floated through his mind, as he glanced between the three women. Grinning like a loon, he could just imagine what they expected in a primitive hayseed. Well, yeah, I mean, Earth is barely liberated and this is the capital. I just can't believe I'm actually here. He managed not to grind his teeth as he smiled. "Now that's what I mean. See, if you let me take care of you, why, you can come out with us all the time," Tirola said smugly. Why, I have this book deal I want to show you that... Tirola, not now. Mephisti leaned over to her co-wife with a predatory, if slightly strained, smile. Pleasure now, business later, you know. He was nurturing thoughts that later would be around the time he was sloshed, and jumped as he felt Sarashi's hand brush up along his leg. Hey! Sarashi pulled the hand back, but looked at him hopefully, as the other two looked at him in surprise. Everything all right? Mephisti asked smoothly. She glanced over at Sarashi and smiled at him like a picture of innocence. Oh, hey, yeah, this is great. I was just thinking. The three were looking at him expectantly, when the blessings of memory smiled upon him. I was wondering if the Shovanti have drinking games. He leaned forward, as if sharing a secret. I mean, I haven't been out like this in years, but the last time I got so hammered. Did you now? Mephisti inched forward eagerly. Well, we do have. I mean, you ladies have been so good to me tonight. I probably shouldn't do this. He looked around the room and grinned like a loon. What if I teach you a human game to say thanks? It's not like I get out like this very often. Please? Mephisti looked like she was considering it, when Triola banged the flat of her hand on the table. Sure, I'm good. That sounds like fun. Tom was sure he felt Sarashi slipping closer beside him, and a hand making a move when he shot out of the booth. Great. You ladies just sit back and let me do this human style, he said with a grin, and aimed a wink somewhere between Mephisti and Tirola, before looking at Sarashi. As the man, you let me take care of you three, just this once? As my way of saying thank you? Come on, tell me what each of you is drinking. Mephisti? The head of House Rocher looked flustered for a moment, as he leaned toward her over the table. Red grain for me. Great. Tirola? Tirola smirked at Mephisti, then leaned forward, as if she was going to meet him over the table. Blue Grail. Aha! I should have known you were a Blue Grail kind of girl, he said with a smile. What about you, Sarashi? Sarashi looked between her co-mothers as they eyed her expectantly, as well as one another, and Sarashi seemed to deflate slightly. Red grain for me, too. Right, I'll go set us up and be right back. He smiled at the trio before dashing away. The bar itself was a spectacle of solid glass that shimmered through different shades of purple without any visible light source. Tom made his way to one of the few open spots along its length, before flagging over one of the young Shovanti men who was working. Oh, you're The little shill seemed flustered for a moment, before exaggerating his pronunciation. Hello, human. Hi there, Tom grinned at the confounded shill, and looked him over. The guy was in black slacks, but wore little better than a tank top. He wore a lace collar at his throat that had his name stitched onto it, and the whole ensemble seemed to be geared to get patrons looking down the staff's chests. It's all right. Dakra? Did I say that right? I speak Vatica. Oh, hey, you do. This is so amazing. I never thought I'd actually meet one of your people. Dakra grinned in delight. Anyway, what can I get you? Tom leaned back and looked at the profusion of lights and bottles behind the bar. I don't know. You know, all I've seen Shovanti order is red grain or blue grail. Oh, goodness, I know. Do they want red grain regular or dark? And don't worry, we've got it all here. Everything from that to Helcom Icewine, Rakiri, Garprak, and Anther Battleglory. Goddess, we even have a bottle of Nightgrew Mushroom Tears that's gathering dust somewhere. Dakra swept a hand theatrically across the back counter, before looking back at him regretfully. Though, I don't think we have anything from Earth just yet. Wow. I mean, okay. Regular, I suppose. Tom blinked and filed that away, looking at the profusion of bottles in all shapes, styles, and colours. A bottle of something brilliant emerald that seemed to fluoresce with an inner light. "What's that one?" he said, pointing it out. It's green." Dacre looked back and his smile melted. "I'm sorry, I only started here last month, and I'm still learning the obscure stuff." "Hey, no worries. Look, I was really hoping you could do me a favour. You see those 3 ladies I'm with?" He turned and waved back at the Rochers, plastering a silly grin on his face before turning back. "Look, they want to do a drinking game, so we want to just keep the drinks coming all night, but, well, this is kind of embarrassing. I wondered if I could get something light, you know? Looks like a red grain or a blue grell, maybe has a bit of a kick, but no alcohol. I really don't want to do anything stupid." "Oh, it's that kind of date. Babe, don't you worry about a thing. I'll have the waiters put yours in a glass with the club logo on it. You stick with that, and you'll be just fine." Dacre grinned back and nodded, flipping a hand through his hair. "What about them?" Red grain for the ones on each side and a blue grell for the woman in the middle." Tom blinked, surprised at just how easily this was going. "Don't worry a hair in your head, babe. 2 red grains and a blue grell for them, and a purple princess for you. We'll keep them coming until you tell us to stop, and if you need us to slip you out the back, you just give me a nod." Dacre grinned and hurried off to have a word with the other bartender. With nothing more for it, Tom turned and flounced back to the table, a dark joy taking hold of his heart. He was flying without a net, and he knew it. But if this worked, it was a glorious evil. "All right, we're all set," he gushed, spreading his arms wide to the trio and bestowing a radiant smile before settling back in beside Sarashi. "Let me teach you a game we call Fuzzy Duck." "You alone can make my song take flight. It's over now, the music of the night." The heart-rending cry of the phantom's pain washed over the stage, a voice as powerful as any cliff singer. It was pure beauty, there in the darkness. That darkness spread across the stage, as the phantom slid into his chair and drew his long black cloak over him. The girls watched in hushed awe as the music went on, a figure slipping from the shadows, drawing the cloak away. Someone in the room cried out as the chair was revealed, empty, but for the mask. The orchestra rose. The show was over. "Okay, that was good," declared Pamali, breaking the spell of silence. It was her 3rd time watching it through, and Melondi wanted to brain the girl. "Good. It's... Some people just had no appreciation." She drew in a sigh and just smiled. "I'm glad you liked it." "Heathens!" Struggling to contain her indignation, she fretted her way between the pile of girls getting off the floor and making their way out, collecting her pad from the top of the AV player. It was just so frustrating, but at least the others had enjoyed it. It wasn't a movie, but it didn't hurt people to broaden their horizons a little bit, just now and then. Most of the other dorm girls had left, leaving her with Lark, Desi, Jax, and the twins, who were picking up the snacks while Pris, Belle, and Scifi were gathering up the cushions and pushing the couches back into position. It wasn't fair. Even worse, this was the only opera Professor Warwick had given her. If humans had made something this good, it only made sense that there had to be others. Now, he was gone for the entire shell. Desi? Melondi frowned thoughtfully as she picked at an idea. I was just wondering, when we helped the professor unpack for the library, he had a lot of his music records and stuff all in that big box. She'd known something was up when the professor has slid out of her asking for more than the one show. Goddess love him, the man just had no guile at all. Deshin dropped a handful of snack wrappers into the waste bin and brushed her hands off. Well, sure. It's all in the cargo containers at the library. I saw the professor sorting through that stuff yesterday. Why? The library is open till 10, right? I was just wondering if we could go over. Maybe have a look for some other operas in the music section? Well, yeah. Deshin frowned in thought. It's all there and catalogued. He's just kept a lot of it back. But we don't have any good reason to go over there this time of night, do we? I'll give you one, Kellogg growled in frustration. I've been meaning to give you this damn cube back. Maseri sighed inwardly as she carried an unconscious Sarashi slung over one shoulder, while the human unsteadily guided Mavisti and Tirola toward the car. This kind of thing seldom happened, but that didn't make it any less mortifying. There had been a few instances where she wasn't very fond of her employer, but for the entire family to gang up on one man? On the other hand, at least he was upright. That seemed like a small miracle granted by the goddess, given the near comatose state of Miss Sarashi. But still... This way. Warwick was between Lady Mavisti and Lady Tirola, staggering along behind her, though she wasn't certain who was supporting who. At least she knows where she is. Follow that driver. I knew I could get you. Plash. Drunk? Mavisti was nodding firmly as Maseri opened the door and pulled Sarashi inside. She spared a glance for the other three as Lady Mavisti slid out of his arms to lean against the side of their car before starting to giggle. Does he fuck? Fuck he does. I guess that means I'm titty much properly fit-shaped. Is this where we get him to sign the papers? The papers, yeah? Lady Tirola was still upright, but swayed like a gale was coming in. Hey, human. Hey, you wanna sign? Oh, I don't feel so good. She climbed out of the back and reached for Lady Mavisti, who just finished sliding gently down the side of the car, and had begun to snore, as Tirola doubled over the back of the car and began throwing up. Right, there's that then. Thank you for picking us up so fast when I called. Tom clapped his hands. Standing up straighter, he tugged at his blazer and gave her a cheeky grin, then sighed as Tirola gave another strangled heave. It looks like we got them out here just in time. Better out than in, but at least you'll feel better in the morning. Maseri looked at him incredulously. But wait, what? You were slurring when you called. You practically fell in the bushes twice just walking here. I wanted them to think they were keeping up. He gave a little shrug. Let's get these two loaded in and head back. Well, once she's done. You said something about pastari soup? Yes! 3 miles away in the bunker, Sergeant Kalani shrieked for joy. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, goddess, yes. Just find it already. You know you're not going to get your hands on that thing, right? Captain Solani sighed, as she turned from the video feed. Third shift tended to be slow, but she liked movie night, as well as other attractions sometimes on display. On the other hand, as the cameras followed the girls out of the dorm, she was now certain that Kalani had developed an unhealthy fascination. I'm not even sure you should. That thing has been driving you stir crazy and you haven't even touched it. Well, not yet, but they said there were 2 of them. If Kalani's enthusiasm was dented, it wasn't showing. If I can just get a quick look at the one they said isn't scrambled, it will be so much help. You've already modelled it on your Omnipad. Anyway, how are you going to spot it? Solani asked warily. If only she sent Kalani along with Vaiko to take out the trash. The goddess wasn't with her tonight. Captain Biona had the extra cameras installed in the library. All I need is to get lucky. Solani closed her eyes and breathed. They really needed some time outside of the bunker. The girls peered into the dark interior of the container as the door clanged open, and looked at one another. So, where is it? Melondi asked Deshin, as the others milled about. He has the boxes there in the back. Desi pointed towards a stack of boxes, set towards the rear of the cargo pod. This doesn't seem like a good idea. Are you sure this can't wait? Relax. You said all of this is copied and ready to go into the library, Mel said defensively, and flicked on the light before walking inside. I just want to run a quick download. It's probably out on the datanet somewhere anyway. It's just saving time. Come on. Everyone just pick a box. We'll be in and out before the library closes. The other girls filed inside, looking over the collection. This is all of it? You're sure? Asked Scifi, as she handed down a box from the top of the stack to Deshin. It doesn't seem like much. It isn't, Desi nodded. He moved out his clothes and all of the food that he brought, so this is all that's left beside the stuff we're putting into the library. Oh, you didn't mention this, exclaimed one of the twins, as the others giggled over her sister's shoulder. These are photo albums, actual paper ones. Kellogg slid over behind the twins and raised her own light. Oh, this I've got to see. Melondi huffed, as Jaxby and Belder slid over to look. Pulling open another box, she saw a standard Shilvanti hard drive, nestled atop stacks of recordings. Desi, hold the light. I think this is it. Priscilla grinned, as she leaned in to pick out another album. Oh, goddess, look at what he's wearing. Melondi frowned as her pad remoted in. She wasn't sure what she was looking for, but everything was indexed. Spirit of the Theatre wasn't listed. It's not here, she pouted. I thought you said they were all here. They should be. Deshin looked over her shoulder. Unless they're in the box over there. He was moving some things into that the other day. What is that? Kellogg pointed at the album. He and that girl are dressed all in green with white letters on their chests, Belder said as she peered in. What does the caption say? Just a sec while I fish out the translator app, Jack said, poking at her Omnipad. Melondi looked at the last box set into the corner and pulled it open. It was a small collection, but there was another hard drive. Setting her pad to connect, she waited a moment until the blue light came up and opened the inventory. The caption says, Halloween 1987, green M&Ms, one plain, one with nuts. Jax frowned. I wonder what that means. Yes, this is it. She pumped her fist as she saw the image of the spirit on one of the covers. He was probably putting these aside for us later. Scifi looked inside and tugged one of the cases out. But there are only a few boxes in here. What do they say? Oh, goddess, look at this one. One of the twins was staring at the folder. He looks like he was our age, and, he doesn't have a shirt on. And we're done here. Deshin walked over and closed the photo album in the twins' hands. Come on, some of this is his personal stuff. He hasn't left it out on public display like a Cohen the Barbarian movie. Maybe, grinned Kellogg, but everybody has seen that, and it's Conan the Barbarian. I haven't seen that, Belder pouted, then turned bright blue as the others turned and stared. What? My parents would have had a fit if they found out. Oh, we are so giving you an education, Willist. Priscilla grinned up at Belder, before turning another page on the album. Melondi turned back to the tiny pile and set the files to transfer. There were a few audio files, but most were video. She looked over the titles with glee. Cats, Chess, Evita, Firefly, Serenity, Jesus Christ Superstar, Les Miserables, Mamma Mia, Phantom of the Opera, The Rocky Horror Picture Show, Tommy, V for Vendetta, and We Will Rock You. You girls are all coming home with me, she said in satisfaction, as she toggled off her Omnipad. Girls? Melondi was about to ask what it was when she looked at Priscilla. The girl was looking somberly at the photo album. I think this was his daughter. Melondi wandered over to the others as they crowded around. Pris looked up, then back at the album. She couldn't have been much older than us. She looks like my cousin, Scifi bit out, staring at the photographs. I mean, change the skin color and give her tusks and dark hair, but yeah. Melondi looked at the girl, smiling for the camera. The Omnipad suddenly felt far heavier. Let's put everything back, she said quietly. I think Des is right. We are done here. Miv looked over as her Omnipad pinged. It was late, but it was the tone she'd set for Tom. The Rochers had whisked him away only a few hours ago, and now he was probably out on the town being wined and dined, and who knew what else. She picked the Omnipad up tentatively and swiped it open. TW to MP. Sitting around in the servants' kitchen chatting. I traded my chicken recipe for a really great pastari soup. I know it's late, but wanted a message. Missing you. Good morning, Tom sang out as he sat at the breakfast table. I wondered if I was early for lunch. Palmera was just telling me about the history of the family, and Velisti here makes a wonderful chipped turogs and cream sauce. Leaning against the doorframe, Tarola looked an unhealthy shade of royal blue. You're... Oh, goddess, you must be joking. My scalp feels like it's on fire. No, it's really good. He smiled as the little chef moved to help Tarola into a chair. He's been treating me right, but we weren't sure when you'd be up. Up? Tarola tried to focus. Where's Mavisti, and what time is it? Lady Mavisti called down to say she won't be joining us this morning, lady. Her exact words were, if anyone calls me again, they're fired. Palmera didn't exactly sniff, but as Tom looked at the housekeeper, he didn't see a lot of empathy. Shall I show Karen in, lady? The writer? Tarola winced and tried to focus. She isn't due until 11. Is 20 past 11, lady? This time Tom didn't imagine it, as Palmera sniffed. She's been waiting for this past half hour, but I've not admitted her until either you or Lady Mavisti were ready to receive her. Oh, my goddess, fine. Go get her. Tarola slumped lower in the chair, cradling her head. I woke up and the room was spinning. Did the papers get signed? I'm sure it's just fine if I meet your writer, Tom said blithely, as Palmera slipped out of the room. You've been here. It's just like you said last night. I can see when I'm in good hands. You can go have a nice lay down while I talk to her. But what about the papers? Tarola tried to focus against the late morning sunshine. I need to make sure. Don't worry a hair in your head, Tom said, another blessing in his thoughts, for the bartender last night. Billing the Rochers for a dozen drinks that were little more than sugar water had likely been a generous tip, but it was a nice touch. You're the one who showed up. It's not like I can't see who the real woman in the family is. Tirola seemed to swell a bit at that, and Tom smiled. Just behind her, Felicity almost fumbled the breakfast platter and coughed. I need to make sure. You really should try that chip Turox. The cream sauce Felicity makes is just wonderful. Miss Karen, lady. Palmyra stepped back as she ushered a stout Shivanti woman inside the dining room, and Tom stood up, nodding amiably. I think I'm going to go lay down. Tirola rose unsteadily. Karen, you know what we want. Just get it done. Tom looked back to the woman, who beamed. Of course, Lady Rocher. It's my task. No, my duty to. Tirola waved her off and stumbled out, with the aid of Palmyra, who closed the door behind them. So, it's Karen? That's right. Isari Karen. The portly woman looked around and moved to the opposite side of the table, as Felicity set out a plate. And may I say what an honour, no, a towering honour this is for me. There have been children, but you're the first adult human to live on Shill who's become a public figure. Well, besides the prince. But no one ever sees much of him, and he never speaks to the press, much less a writer. May I call you Professor or Thomas? Tom's fine, he said, bumping fists. Do you prefer Isari? That would be wonderful, she smiled, settling in at the table while Felicity poured tea. I've been a fan, no, a monumental fan of yours, ever since Lady Rocher showed me the commencement footage at the Academy. Oh, that's nice. Tom settled in and nodded his thanks, as Felicity took his plate. So, I glean that you want to write a book about me. Oh, absolutely, she said, waving dismissively. I'm certain your story is going to be a fascinating journey. Your life before being on Shill, then coming to work in the heart of the Imperium. It'll be enthralling, utterly compelling. I'm here to make that happen for you. Are you sure? Sure. Why, when we're done here, everyone will see a picture of your wonderfully plucky adventures to make your place in the wide-open galaxy. Tom had to grin, despite himself, at the woman's presentation. I don't think anyone has ever called me plucky before. Oh, they will, she said, drawing out her omnipad. I have a treatment already done that I can tell, no, I can assure you, will give the reading public a whole new perspective. You're going to adore it. Let me just show you the cover. Tom looked down at the tablet and blinked. Tom Warwick, the teasingly titulating misadventures of a teacher, as told to Noble's House Press. He read off slowly. Why is there a drawing of me topless and facing away on the cover? Oh, that's nothing. It's just there to catch a wandering reader's attention. Just good marketing, really. You've all but hidden my face, grafted onto a picture of... Is this Arnold Schwarzenegger's body? Well, none of the readers are going to know what you look like. It's all just a case of emphasizing your assets. It's just cheeky, even adorably cheeky, if you don't mind the pun. I'm standing in short shorts. Well, we thought about adding a bit of side chest. It's very popular, you know, but marketing thought it was just a bit too much. A bit too much? Surely you're joking. He stared back at the cover. I know, right? But just move past that, and have a look at the first chapters. I have mock-ups for the outlines, and I think you'd agree they're just delightfully playful. Chapter 1. Make love, says Warwick. You're kidding, right? Chapter 3, prepare to be boarded. Chapter 4, bring on the storm, I like it rough. He flipped through the pages. This reads like softcore pirate porn. Don't be silly. We can let the reader think softcore pirate porn. We can even hint at it, but we certainly aren't saying that. I'm here on Shield, teaching at the academy. Tom looked up for his brows. I'm not here to steal the Empress's yacht and sail off with a cargo hold full of schoolgirls. Sari paused and blushed, but grinned ferociously. Would you maybe consider a sequel? Teaching, he bit out. Oh, well, fine. That's in Chapter 8, she said with a pout. Tom swiped back through the pages till it came up, and swallowed. Why they call me Long Tom, he read quietly. Don't worry about it. It's all just a facade. We'll create a real page-turner that captivates and demands the reader's attention. Don't you just love it? Together we're going to sweep away any prior conceptions about humanity. Can't you just see it? What do you think I see? He said acidly, his temper at the tipping point. Do you think I'm some incredibly naive primitive? Or I'm just utterly stupid? I don't think that at all. Humanity is a wonderful acquisition. Acquisition? Are you that utterly stupid? He slammed his fist on the table with enough force that the cups rattled. Do you think I'd willingly degrade and humiliate myself? No, not just myself, but the academy that gave me a home and roped my entire species into being your portrait of a piece of ass? What? You thought I'd literally just bend over for being exploited by this trash? Seriously, what do you even see when you look at me, besides a male-shaped piece of pink fodder for you to rub one out? Did you actually think I just grin and go for the money while you write this grotesque character assassination? You hack? Hack? Her eyes narrowed as she drew herself up in her chair. She reached to retrieve the omnipad, her smile growing malicious. Let's just get this straight, Professor. This isn't just character assassination, she said smugly. When I get done with you, you're going to be a hapless laughingstock. You might as well enjoy the money, because all you're ever going to be is a joke. A hapless and pathetic joke at that. We have you in a contract, so you might as well just stick in a gag your mouth, lay on your back and think of Earth. Your ass is mine now. That's nifty, he said coolly, because I haven't signed shit. Isari paled. But, Lady Tarola? Didn't close the deal, Tom snarled, leaning over the table. And you just made sure of it. So you can take your book treatment and shove that omnipad up your ass. He leaned back in his chair, considering the woman. The snarl on his face twisted into a withering smile. Get out of here. And maybe I won't tell Tarola and Mavisti they can thank you personally. I think they'd be in just the right mood to show their appreciation. More tea, Professor? Valisti said warmly, as he offered the carafe, while Isari Karan scrambled for the door. Yes, please, Valisti. Tom leaned back in the chair, watching the writer's hasty departure. This is really good.